Hello. In this screencast, I will focus on multilingual learners' strategies that they use in learning additional languages. First, I'm going to define the concept of language learning strategies and present some of their main typologies. Next, I will move on to the presentation of some specific examples of the strategies that could be particularly useful for multilingual learners. Now, a brief reminder of what language learning strategies are. According to Carol Griffiths, these are activities consciously chosen by learners for the purpose of regulating their own language learning. In a more recent definition, Rebecca Oxford places the concept of strategies into the self-regulation model of learning, and her definition is as follows. L2 learning strategies are complex, dynamic thoughts and actions selected and used by learners with some degree of consciousness in specific contexts in order to regulate multiple aspects of themselves, such as cognitive, emotional, and social, for the purpose of A. Accomplishing language tasks, B. Improving language performance or use, and C. Enhancing long-term proficiency. Strategies are mentally guided, but they may also have physical and therefore observable manifestations. It's clear from these definitions that learning strategies are what learners do in order to learn more efficiently. Strategies help learners direct their learning and hence make them more autonomous, so the links between the concept of strategies and learner autonomy can be easily seen here. Several typologies of language learning strategies have been offered by scholars since the 1980s when the concept was introduced. For this presentation, I have selected two classic typologies which have been very frequently referred to. One of them is the typology by Rebecca Oxford. She divided strategies into direct, that is, directly connected with the activity of learning, and indirect, associated with organizing and regulating the learning activity. So within direct strategies, we can distinguish memory strategies, for example, creating mental linkages or reviewing, cognitive strategies, for example, practicing, analyzing and reasoning, compensation strategies, for example, guessing intelligently, overcoming limitations in speaking and writing. Within the group of indirect strategies, we can distinguish metacognitive strategies, for example, arranging and planning your learning, evaluating your learning, affective strategies, for example, lowering your anxiety, encouraging yourself, and social strategies, for example, asking questions and cooperating with others. O'Malley and Chamot's typology is similar. It is important to stress that metacognitive strategies are connected with planning, monitoring, and evaluating one's own learning. Cognitive strategies with the very process of learning. So this is what learners do while actually learning and performing tasks. Social strategies are related to cooperating with others, and affective ones with regulating the emotional side of learning. In relation to what was said earlier about the interconnections of languages in one's mind and the specificity of multilingual learners, there are solid grounds for such learners' success in the learning of additional languages. One factor that may contribute to this success is the effective use of learning strategies. Such learners are more experienced in language learning. They have clear preferences, well-defined strategies, and are more likely to know what helps them learn. Research indicates that multilingual learners use learning strategies more frequently than learners learning their first foreign language, and that their strategy use is more flexible, better adjusted to the tasks, and that the strategies are more varied. This concerns predominantly the use of cognitive strategies. However, all types of strategies can be adjusted to the context of learning additional languages. In fact, some typologies of multilingual strategies have already been described in the literature. The strategies that I'm going to list in this final part of the presentation make use of the linguistic repertoires of multilingual learners of new languages. Okay, so metacognitive strategies go first, and let me remind you they're associated with organizing and managing the process of learning. One of such strategies is setting clear goals for learning a new language, often on the basis of one's prior experience and knowledge why people learn languages. Another strategy is diagnosing one's strengths and weaknesses on the basis of prior language learning. This task is easier for people who have already learned languages. Other strategies in this group are using prior learning experience to approach tasks, various tasks such as remembering new vocabulary, in learning a new language, monitoring one's progress on the basis of one's prior experience, for example, checking whether we are progressing at the right pace, whether our progress is stable and systematic, evaluating one's progress in relation to the success of learning other languages. So, for example, how did I do before? What can I improve this time? Am I progressing faster or slower, and why? Within cognitive strategies, which are directly linked to the learning activity, translation, written, oral, or just mental, of words, phrases, sentences, bidirectionally between the native and foreign language and between different foreign languages seems to be the most obvious one. The strategy of mirroring, that is, word-to-word translation, in order to highlight similarities and differences in structures, is another strategy that can be used. Comparing grammatical structures in different languages and reflecting on the similarities and differences between them. Reflecting on different form meaning mappings in different languages and reflecting about how differently the same meanings are expressed in different languages. At the lexical level, paying attention to cognates and borrowings. Another strategy, still within the cognitive group, can be reading explanations in other languages. So, for example, when learning French, you can read grammatical explanations in English. Looking for materials such as grammar exercises or some reading tasks in various languages on the internet. For example, interesting, useful materials for learning French can be available in English. Code switching and translanguaging in communicative situations to get the meaning across, and these can be communicative learning strategies. Referring to previous learning experience can also be used at the level of affective strategies for regulating emotions. For example, the learner can consciously recall his or her successes in learning and using other languages to evoke more positive feelings about the learning situation. And they can also resort to other languages at a time of a lack of confidence when the knowledge of the new language is still limited. Finally, social strategies, those which involve other people, can include asking a teacher for a translation into another language, native or non-native, discussing linguistic similarities and differences, for example, between French and new language, with English, the previously learned language, with the teachers or peers, in communicative situations, asking an interlocutor for support, such as asking for a translation or some kind of explanation, of course, if you share the same language code. Now, if you wonder what the teacher can do to help learners make effective use of their multilingual repertoires, please watch the screencast on strategy-based instruction. Thank you.